nowhere in digital.
I'm pretty sure somewhere.
I know it's in there somewhere. But to make the story short, I had been given an assignment where we were supposed to write about a time that we had failed at something, and in the style of, like, one of the authors that we had read in the class so far. And because this was an AP English class, even though we were only like a quarter of the year in, we'd already read like 4 fucking books. Like, we were charging through material in this class. It was ludicrous. And there would always be like these discussion forums and everything with the class, like, and the teacher was very forceful about like what she thought the messages of these books were, that like this is how you interpret it, kind of thing.
They always are. English teachers always think their analysis of something is like supreme.
The thing is that the books we read in this class were really edgy. Like, one of them was a book about
high schoolers to read them.
One of them was a book about a Native American guy, like, dealing with, like, his identity crisis and shit, and I did not mean to come here, but let's go ahead and play here for a little bit, because why not? I'm gonna go try to kill the hunters here. We had read this book, and, like, it had the word cunt in it, it had the word fuck in it, so I was like, okay, in my mind, this was like, this means that this class is acknowledging us as advanced. Well, this is 11th grade, you know? Like, we all know these words, we all swear, the books we read have swearing, so in my mind, I was like, if this is supposed to be like a mature classroom, I should, like, be able to copy these elements in my writing. Like, I should be able to write edgy, dark shit and swear, you know, because, like, that's the shit we're reading in here. So, like, I would just put, like, you know, full-blown swear words into my fucking assignments for the class. But the thing is that the way this class worked, the teacher had so much on her plate that she wouldn't get around to, like, reading our, like, written assignments until way later. Like a month later at the earliest. So I never started getting, like notes on my shit, like, hey, don't swear, and, like, this is inappropriate, until I had already written this story. Like, the story I got in trouble for, I got in trouble, like, almost a month after it was written, because it took so long before she actually, like, read it, so I had fucking forgotten about it. Like, all the edginess of it, that, like, I wrote it with the intention of it getting me kicked out of the class. Like, that was what I wanted to happen. Like,
that's amazing.
I didn't think it would happen the way it did, because I didn't think she would take it the wrong way. I thought she would just read it and be like, oh, this guy seems like he shouldn't be in this class because he, you know, like, clearly is is having a hard time. Like, that's what the paper's about, basically. Is like, what I decided to write was, my failure was not doing my homework. And so it was a story about why I didn't do my homework for the class.
And it was really edgy.
And it was in the style of George Orwell, because he was one of the writers we had read, and I was already a huge fan of him because I'd read 1984 in 9th grade and loved it. You know, I'd read Animal Farm in 9th grade. You would think that the teacher
would be, like, reasonable and be like, oh yeah, it's like, it's Orwell, so it's gonna be like a big, like, show.
We had read one of his short stories in there that was, like, a lot more advanced and journalistic than, like his novels, 1984 and Animal Farm, are, like, you know, written to be entertaining so that he could, like, get these ideas out to people.
That's why they were so short.
Right, exactly.
So, like,
especially Animal Farm. Animal Farm is written so children can fucking understand fascism, you know, but, like, fucking... He wrote these things to be pop media, but, like, the thing we read in the class was, like, a little bit more, you know, out there. So basically I had it in my head that, like, I could write whatever the fuck I want, because, and granted, it wasn't so much that I was, like, doing a perfect stylistic copy of George Orwell. I was just writing edgy shit, because that's what he wrote, was, like, edgy shit, you know, like, psychological stuff that, like, explores the reason that you feel the way you do and stuff like that. So,
and really kind of plays on people's fears.
Yeah. And I used imagery from, like, okay, so there's one part where I'm describing, like, putting a gun to my head and then putting it back down, but I'm making a reference to Persona 3. Like, I use the name of the guns in Persona 3 because, like, there's tons of imagery in that game of people shooting themselves in the head, and it really resonated with me because I was super suicidal when I was, like, 16, so, and that was when I played the game. So, like, I was the perfect, like, audience for that game. Unfortunately, I was just impatient and never fucking played through the whole thing, you know? Like, I considered it my favorite game. I just, like, never actually got into the story because I only played like 10 hours of a fucking 70-hour game, you know? But like, anyway, so I had references to that in the story and shit. But like, so when eventually my parents got called, like, one night, and it just so happened that this very night, me and Victor had gone out. Like, we had gone out to go, like, buy soda or something late at night, and my parents had come home while we were out, right? And, like, they were, like, calling or texting Victor or something, because I didn't have a phone yet, but Victor did, I think. They're, like, calling him, like, where are you guys? Like, we gotta talk to Conrad right now. And, like, we were thinking we were in trouble for being out, even though, like, we didn't think that was weird for us to be out, but, like, you know, we were just, we weren't out often, you know? So, like, we were like, oh, shit, are we in trouble because we, like, went out at night? We get home, and it turns out I'm in trouble for this thing I wrote, but my dad is, like, really, like, accosting me, like, I can't believe you wrote this thing, like, when, like, we live on Virginia Tech Trail, and the Virginia Tech thing happened just this year, like, they're gonna think you're a school shooter, and I was just like, I hadn't thought about any of that at all. Like, I had no thought that this made me sound like a school shooter. I was just doing a stylistic parody of George Orwell. It was really well written. It was the best written thing I had seen written.
Did you say, like, anything, like...
There's a part where I had written dialogue between me and my friend Don-san, like, it wasn't actual stuff that we had said to each other, but, like...
Did it have both your names? Like,
it had, like, our SMS. It was supposed to be SMS messaging.
Yeah.
So, like, it's presented as a messenger client conversation. Like, you know, because I do format breaks and shit like that in my writing. All my shit's super meta. But, like, so, like, there was a part where, yeah, it was, like... It was supposed to be us messaging each other because we talked all the time on Instant Messenger on Yahoo. So, like, there's a part where he says, like, you should just drop the class before you go crazy and stab your teacher or something. And that was what he had said in, like, the dialogue. Because, like, that's just something he might say as, like, a joke.
Yeah.
You know, it's not something that there's any risk of me doing. But because that... Okay, so the teacher had read this thing and just been, like, generally concerned with, like, the tone and, like, the violent imagery of it and the fact that I was, like, referencing shooting myself.
And did she present it to another...
She showed it to my guidance counselor, who's a fucking dumb bitch.
School guidance counselors are the root of evil.
She got fired eventually.
They are all terrible.
Because she fucked over more than just me. But she fucked me over in more than one way. But yeah, so she read this, and she was the one who was like, oh shit, your son's a school shooter, and she's the one who called my parents with this fucking deep insight, you know? But the people who I actually had to talk to, once I came into school, the people who I had to answer to were the vice principal who was in charge of my grade, who was a very good woman. Like, she was, I think, the, like, person keeping the school together, you know, like... Because she was, like, real chill, real intelligent, and understanding, and, like, on the younger side, so she kind of related to the kids a little bit more than other people in charge. So, yeah, she was really cool. She was the one who had, when I was just, like, skipping, when I decided to take senior privilege upon myself, even though I didn't have the GPA to have it, and I just, like, left school every day before I
did
break.
Similar things.
She's the one who said, I have to give you detention because you've been doing this for a minute, but I will allow... And that was the first time I'd ever heard the slang, a minute. Like, so I thought it was hilarious. It stuck with me forever. That I heard it from, like, my student vice president. But yeah. So... She and the school psychologist were the ones who actually talked to me. And when they understood what the assignment was, then he was like, oh, I think you did a great job of the assignment. Like, this is obviously George Orwell's style, and, like, you know, like, it's clear that you don't want to be in this class, so you should probably drop it, but, like, you do probably have a future as a writer. Like, is what he said, you know? Yeah. So I was just like, that was all I needed to take away from it. And I do have a future as a writer, it turns out, because that's my fucking career.
I'm glad that somebody, like, saw the light in that situation. So, the topic I wanted to talk about was insubordinance. And
we should just switch over to your episode. Because we can just end this episode right here.
How long is this?
It's gone like almost 40 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Because I got into that story and I didn't intend for it to go.
Let's end this and you can talk more about being, edgy kids in high school.
Yeah, alright.
This was supposed to be my episode, but whatever. It's like episode.
No, this was mine, wasn't it? When I talked about Bloodborne?
Who knows?
This probably was supposed to be your episode.
I don't mind, baby.
I don't remember what we talked about at the beginning, but I feel like I had the first time. Oh, it was us fucking up the intro.
Yeah.
Alright, well, we'll do the intro for the outro since we never did it. I'm this far from the mic.
And I'm this far from the mic.
And we're these fars from the mic.
I fucked it up. Bye.
Hello everybody, welcome to Copyright Kino. I am your host, Monkey Johnson.
And I'm one man in this universe who just can't do without another Star Wars movie every 4 months. Erich.
You are the truest detective.
What? Oh, yeah! Oh, shit, yeah.
True detectives in this movie. That's all I can ever see. I don't see him as Hey Mitch. I don't see him as whatever. I don't see him as the cop who killed himself in 3 billboards. He's motherfucking True Detective till the day he dies, which just so happens he dies in every movie and TV show that he's in.
He tried to mow my lawn.
No, he doesn't die in True Detective, so it's weird that I would say he dies in everything.
That's right.
I just spoiled, I think, 80 different pieces of media with one sentence.
I'm trying to think of things he hasn't died in that's not True Detective.
Does he die in the final
Zombieland?
Hunger Games? Because I definitely did not watch the
Yeah, I
final
think he
Hunger
dies
Games.
in that.
Well, there you go.
He dies in that.
Hey,
Fucking
today we're going to talk about a little movie I like to call Solo, a Star Wars story.
That's right.
And why do I like to call it that?
Disney?
Because that's what it's called.
Mm-hmm. Wow, you were not lying. You're fucking just saying facts at this point.
Erich,
Who is it starring, Monkey?
well, it
Give me the cast
stars.
list.
It stars Harrison Ford Jr. Childish Gambino.
Yeah.
True Detective.
Yeah.
Some chick. And Warwick Davis, who I think played R2-D2, is actually playing a human in this movie, which was cool.
Well, Warwick Davis did not play R2-D2.
Who the fuck? Who is Warwick Davis?
Warwick Davis played Wicket the Ewok.
Oh.
Kenny Baker played R2-D2.
Oh, well,
He's sadly dead.
I recognized it as a midget from Star Wars, so I
Yes,
assumed
he is
it was...
definitely a midget from Star Wars.
Hey, so, Erich, let's briefly describe... We have very different philosophies on Star Wars. You are probably the biggest Star Wars fan and apologist of all time. You've said you've seen every Star Wars movie, TV show, and read every book. Whereas I've seen maybe 4 Star Wars films. I've seen less than half of the films. Never read a book. Never watched a TV show. And I also generally don't like Star Wars. Of the 4 movies I've seen, I hated 2 of them. So
which one? Catch me up. Which ones have you seen?
I've seen 4, 5, and then and then 7 and 8, and now Han Solo.
7. Holy fuck.
Yeah.
Well, you need to immediately watch episode 6 because you're missing a lot in that one.
I get it. I
Can you-
I saw the Star
watch
Wars
the last
parody.
half hour?
I saw the Family Guy parody. I get what happens.
Okay, alright. I
got
think
the
that's
gist.
probably close. Yeah, you understand.
Yeah, so I'm going into this Han Solo movie as a guy who doesn't know a whole lot about Star Wars and also doesn't give a fuck about it. And you're going into it as a guy who knows everything about every Star Wars ever made.
Which conversely means I will universally apologize for anything that happens in the movie while simultaneously hating everything that happens.
Yeah, every single thing. So you get really the full spectrum of different types of opinions in this. You got the expert and the novice chatting it up.
So, as the novice, what did you think about Han Solo? Like, who was he? Where did he come from? What's his deal?
The character or this movie?
No. Before you saw this movie, you've seen episode 4 and episode 5. What do you think of this guy? Like, and how did this movie change what you felt about it?
Yeah, I really like that character of just Harrison Ford's portrayal of this anti-hero sort of guy who doesn't want to. He just wants to look out for himself and his friend Chewie, and it gets in over his head and becomes a hero, by accident.
Yeah.
And I think it's a fun type of character.
Sure. I mean, like, he is not a straight-up good guy like Luke Skywalker, but he's not a villain. Like, he's not...
Yeah, he's like
Darth
an
Vader.
asshole,
He's a scoundrel.
Yeah, with a heart of gold in the end.
Exactly. He comes back at the end, and he shoots down Darth Vader, and, yeah, he has a heart of gold.
Holy shit, I need to watch number 6. Whoa!
No.
Now, I know that he doesn't do a
Alright,
goddamn thing in number 6.
Did this movie fill in any missing points for you? Did it, like... Did it inform you about the character in a way that you felt made it necessary in any way?
Is that what we're gonna go to? If the movie was necessary? I just wanted to talk about whether or not
yes,
I liked
because
it.
you should leave this movie saying, I enjoyed the time I spent with these characters. I better understand the character. Because what is the point of a prequel otherwise? Other than to better understand and like the character that it is giving you back.
Rich, the point of these prequels is that they're making $150 million fan fiction so that they can rake in $1.3 billion every single year for the rest of time. That's what the point of it is.
Sure. But ostensibly there's a story behind this. That's what they're telling us, at least. Before they've fired the writers and fired the directors.
Yeah, they're full of shit.
Yeah.
They have no important story that needs to be told about Han Solo. They just saw, everybody recognizes this, we'll make a movie. That's exactly what all of these are. But I will say, given that, I went into this with the lowest expectations possible. And as the movie went on, I thought it got better and better. And by the third act, usually movies fall apart in the third act. I thought this movie really hit its stride and got really good in the third act. So
almost has the opposite problem, where the beginning of it, you're kind of like struggling to follow it or not really into what it's trying to lay down. There's kind of bigger set pieces near the beginning than there is the very end. The very end is pretty small scale, like just drawn between characters for the most part, which I really enjoyed that. As someone who has a different backstory for Han Solo in my head, and this very much ran up against, I enjoyed this movie for what it did. There were a couple of cringe moments that I just feel like, why the fuck? Why would you do that? What possible writer sits down and says, "Oh, let's see where Han Solo gets his name from"? That's fucking dumb. Like, I mean, I was sitting there with one of the biggest Star Wars fans I know and myself, and we both just looked at each other and gave each other the thumbs down. Because fuck that. There's no reason for that. But it's not as bad as the prequels. The prequels explain things that don't need to be explained. And
sure.
Just be honest about it.
Sure, yeah. I mean, all I know about the prequels is what I got from the Plinkett reviews, which I think is the preferred method of knowing what they are. I'll say
you save yourself time by not watching the movies.
I mean, this might sound blasphemous because it sounds like you're mostly negative on the movie. I think maybe, but of the four new age Disney Star Wars films, I like this one way more than Rogue One. Rogue One I couldn't even finish. That was the biggest piece of horseshit. And I just hate episodes 7 and 8 for various reasons. So just on a pure entertainment level, I might have to say this dumb Solo movie is the best of the new Star Wars movies for me. And I didn't even like it that much. It just didn't enrage me.
Okay. I see. So it didn't pass a threshold of hatred. So therefore,
by being a 5 out of 10, it's the best one.
Yeah. I'd say this movie sticks out around a 6.57. I mean, like that is very middle of the road.
Wow.
And there are a lot of things that I love about this movie, but there's also a lot of I think shaky things. And I mean, I would have liked to have seen whatever the fuck the original directors made of this, because they would have taken it in different directions and been. This is a very middle of the road movie. This is a Ron Howard movie through and through. He is a journeyman director. He is going to competently set up shots, get the actors to give the deliveries. I actually think Ald Manreich, who plays Han Solo in this, he's really good. He nails it a lot of the time. Some of the time he doesn't, but he's a young Han Solo, so he doesn't have to nail it all the time. But he does a good job.
Well, let's dive into the specifics of what we did and didn't like. And I'll start off by saying I'm a sucker for heist movies, especially ones.
Yeah.
You know, last year I gave Logan Lucky. I said it was my 3rd favorite movie of the year, and that's almost completely based on it being a heist movie with double crosses in it. I'm just a sucker for that kind of thing. And this is a movie. The heist is fine, but then when we get into the double, the triple, the quadruple crosses, and all these characters just betraying each other and all this crazy shit, I was really enjoying that stuff. I thought that True Detective, Mr. Oh God, what's his goddamn name?
Woody Harrelson.
Woody Harrelson. I thought he was the best part of the movie. His character was just my favorite. Everything about him I thought was great. Of course, everybody's going crazy for Lando. I thought Childish Gambino did a great job in his role. And for all the behind-the-scenes drama of, we needed to get, what's his name? Erich Ehrenheit?
That's right. Alden Ehrenreich.
Yeah, Erich Ehrenheit. Everybody was saying he's a terrible actor. They had to get acting coaches on set to help him out. But yeah, like you said, I thought he did just fine. Of course, it's hard when you're trying to imitate Harrison Ford at his most charming and charismatic. But if you can separate it in your mind, he's doing a fine job with this interpretation of the character. Because like I said, this is just fan fiction. It's not... I don't think it's a real Star Wars movie.
I mean, in a lot of ways, that's how you have to see these Disney movies, is if this corporation now has control of it and is writing stories that maybe aren't the best, but are trying for something. I think this movie tries for something, and I think it does good by Han Solo's character overall. Just because you have to ride a line where he is, like we said in the beginning, he is not the good guy all the way through, but he is not an awful scoundrel. So at the very end, I'm going to spoil the end of this movie, but at the very, very end of this movie, when he shoots first, you understand that he is not a great guy, but he is doing the right thing, which I did like that they wanted.
Yeah. What were some of the things that made you cringe other than them giving him the name Han Solo?
Well, yeah, there's the Han Solo name, which is basically just a dude at the fucking customs place asks him what his name is, and he just says Han. I guess he doesn't have a last name, or he doesn't care about his last name, but the guy just gives him the name Solo. That's fucking dumb. But, there was 2 or 3 little things. I think it was... No, it wasn't the blaster. The blaster's fine.
Here's one thing that irritated me. I was about to applaud the film for being the first Star Wars movie to not have a lightsaber in it, and then at the very end they decide to fucking ruin it for no reason. For what I assume is just a piece of shitty fan service, and they had to ruin that. And I can't even applaud the movie for not having a goddamn lightsaber.
So you have not seen the moment or the movie that this character comes from, have you?
I know what he is, and like I said, I saw the Plinkett review, so I get it.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a big spoiler, and probably one of the big reveal moments of the movie. The gangster character in this movie, Dryden Voss, we get the impression that he's working for someone. And
played by Vision from Avengers.
Played by Vision. He does a great job in this movie, by the way. He's one of my favorite parts, is just this slimy, just untrustworthy but great performance by Paul Bettany. But he's working for someone. His character is killed by Kira, the Emilia Clarke character, and she puts in the ring and figures out that it's Darth Maul who is alive. I mean, if anybody here is watching the Clone Wars show or the Star Wars Rebels TV show, you've known that Darth Maul has been resurrected from the dead. He fell down a pit on Naboo and went to a trash planet, grew spider legs, lost spider legs, grew robot legs, and he basically started a crime syndicate at one point. So basically they are, this is big. Monkey Jones, I tell you, as a Star Wars fan who keeps up on all the lore and shit, this is a major revelation for these movies. That they are fully playing. Because
who fucking cares about Darth Maul? He was in the first movie for 10 minutes and got killed.
I know.
So who
cares?
Got
killed.
Why do you care
he
about him?
He shouldn't be here. According to the movie's rules, he shouldn't be here.
Yeah, but who cares if the character's boring?
This is playing by the larger... Well, he's not in the cartoon. That's the thing. In the cartoon, he's fleshed out. It is cartoon. It is canon. Because he's fucking alive in this movie.
Yeah.
the cartoon resurrected him, and if you watch the cartoon, you'd understand why he's here right now. Otherwise, you're
not watching some stupid cartoon.
You don't have to. You don't have to watch it. But for everybody who does, like, this is a definite connection between those two things. So suddenly, like, I know that there was a cartoon character in the Rogue One movie, but, like, that doesn't really, like, count, really. But in this movie, you have to have seen Rebels and the Clone Wars for that to make any sense at all. Because to anyone else, Darth Maul's definitely dead.
Yeah, but I don't know, Everett, could it just be that they're just taking ideas from the cartoon? This doesn't prove that the entire cartoon is canon, just because they
he's literally running a criminal organization in this movie.
So what? So what? You can steal plot elements from something.
It's not, no, but it's not. Like, I mean, and like, he's got the same lightsaber as he had in the fucking cartoons. It's not the same lightsaber as he had in the original Episode 1 movie. It's the same one he had in the cartoon. Like, they are obeying by what the cartoon laid down here. And it's pretty crazy to watch on screen. Because nobody expects this shit. Nobody expects Darth Maul to be in a fucking Han Solo movie, nor to, I mean, be alive past when we think he's alive. So I have no idea what normies think of this. I have no idea what somebody coming out of the theater is like, wait a minute, Darth Maul's dead. He died in Episode 1. This takes place after Episode 1. What the fuck? Yeah.
So like, is the implication that they're gonna make more Han Solo movies and the arc is gonna be fighting Darth Maul or something?
Could be. Could be. We don't know. It depends on how good this movie does. But we do know that they're making an Obi-Wan Kenobi movie, and famously in that Star Wars cartoon, Obi-Wan faced off with Darth Maul on Tatooine. So I don't know whether they'll adapt that or what, but I mean, if they set Darth Maul back up, they are definitely going to use it.
Okay, well,
so, I mean,
I'm glad that
this is a big moment for Star
you
Wars.
Star Wars nerds had something to enjoy. I thought it was stupid.
I was just looking at my friend the entire time seeing how he'd react. So, because I didn't go that.
Oh, you knew you got spoiled.
I got spoiled, yeah. That's what I guess for going on 4chan and watching threads of just Darth Maul.
So something I like about Star Wars prequels is that there's that big meme from the first Star Wars movie where Obi-Wan's like, oh, he was a good friend, and then you cut in footage from Episode 3 where he's like fucking killing him and like he's just burning to death. And I was thinking you could do one of this movie where you take a screenshot from Episode 4 of Han and Chewie, and Han says, Hey, Chewie, remember that time we fought Cthulhu and I killed him by tricking him into falling into a black hole? He was a good friend.
He was a good friend.
Cthulhu was a good friend. Just all these,
that's fucking great.
When you make a prequel and you put in all these crazy, huge, wacky, life-changing adventures, and then in the normal movies, like, of course they're never going to acknowledge it because it didn't happen.
I like that though. No, but that is deeply in tune with why the Millennium Falcon looks like it looks, because in this movie it looks pristine, it looks great, but going into this adventure it like loses the front escape pod or whatever, and like it just is all banged up and looks awful. That is pretty cool.
I think fighting Cthulhu and throwing him into a black hole is like one of the biggest adventures of his life, so I think it's funny that they never even mention it again.
I mean, like, when is he going to bring that up?
I don't know. I mean, if I fought Cthulhu, I'd probably talk about it all the time. When he meets the people in the bar, he brags about running the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs. I'd be like, nigga, I fought fucking Cthulhu. I threw his ass into a black hole. Like, that's way more interesting to me.
Monkey, if it's a choice between somebody who says that they beat the Indy 500 in record time and somebody who says they fought Cthulhu, I'm going to trust the person who says that they've done the thing that I've seen done before, rather than the person that is just talking bullshit as far as that.
If you say so. I don't know. I'd probably tell the Cthulhu story myself because that's cool as shit.
I'd say, Monkey, as a Star Wars Expanded Universe fan, this tickled me in a lot of ways. There was references to Terrace Kasi and the Mind Park with Sharu and Ocean and all this crazy shit. Basically, every other thing that Lando said was a reference to novels back in the 1980s that starred Lando Calrissian. So I had a great fucking time hearing those references.
Okay, so that can tie us into our final judgments, and it seems that you're saying, as a huge Star Wars nerd, you got a lot out of this movie and really enjoyed it? Okay, and I'll say, as somebody who doesn't give a single fuck about Star Wars, just going into it as, like, a generic space adventure movie, I also enjoyed it more than I thought that I would. So I guess it's a movie that plays to both audiences.
Yeah, I think if people give this a chance, they'll have a good time. And, like, I don't know that you'll want anything else coming out of the theater. Like, if you had a good time with this, you can leave. You completely forgot that you saw this movie, and you had a good time with Star Wars.
Okay, Rich, I got one final question to clear up what I don't understand. And keep in mind, I haven't seen Episode 3, but I do know that for some reason Yoda is friends with Chewbacca. Can you explain why and how the fuck? Because in this movie, that does not tie together at all.
wait, so you're saying that
Chewbacca was a fucking child?
Say, I met Yoda one time.
No, I'm saying Chewbacca was just he's a slave to the Empire who was like a beast in a cave. When in his life, and why in his life, was he friends with fucking Yoda?
Well, see, this was 20 years ago, before the Empire took over. So when so you haven't seen any of the prequels. So the Jedi Order was a monastic order of warrior monks, and they were betrayed by the Emperor, who had them all killed. All of the clone soldiers were brainwashed to instantly betray the Jedi, and they were all murdered. And Yoda had to escape, so the Wookiees helped him escape, and that was that. And then 20 years later, this happened, or more like 14 or 15.
So it's not specifically that Yoda and Chewbacca were friends, he just, the Wookiees helped Yoda escape.
Yeah, I mean, what you're referencing there is the kind of bullshit that the prequels did, and that this movie flirts with at times, like all of the clever allusions to other things and references and all that stuff. I mean, that is what this movie is full of. And if you have high... if you can take that, you'll find it fine. But if you care about this shit in any way, if you don't like what they do, it'll really turn you off. So,
so it's especially helpful that I had no idea what the hell anything was happening, what any of it was.
Absolutely, but it is absolutely essential that you know that Chewbacca rescued Yoda one time. That is maybe the most pivotal moment of the entire Star Wars saga.
I gotta rewatch this now so I can fully understand.
Relations with the Wookiees I have.
Why did Han Solo speak Wookiee?
That's a good question. I have no fucking idea how he picked that up. Oh, I have to say, fucking Corellian in this movie was fucking great. It was just fucking science fiction Detroit, which is cool.
Yeah, I thought it was a little too blue for me, and it started to hurt my eyes, and that's why I didn't like the opening of the movie.
There were some weird color choices. I think the movie overall all looks cool. Like the guy who did this movie, cinematography-wise, did Arrival, which is another great-looking movie that was very hazy. But yeah, I mean, there were times in which I was struggling to figure out what the fuck was going on. I wish the action sequences were better shot for the most part. Ron Howard is basically just going to shoot whatever the fuck he figures will work.
Yeah.
I wish there was more spunk to some of this stuff. I don't know that Lord and Miller, who were the original directors, would have done better action than Ron Howard, per se, as the comedy directors. I just don't know that they have that in them. But their version of the movie would have taken more chances, would have been wackier, crazier, and I overall would have rather seen that movie than this. But I'll take this. This is fine.
Well, I imagine you followed all the behind-the-scenes drama much more closely than I did. But from what I understand, Ron Howard shot the exact same script that the other directors were going to use. Is that true?
That is absolutely true. The only
so then how
difference
could
is
the directors have made a different movie if they were using the same script?
Because Lord and Miller were famous for improvising. They were famous for saying, okay, do another one. Do a different thing. Do this, this, this. So basically, the dailies they were handing in were nothing like what they wanted on the script page. So, I mean, and that's just basically, you're going to piss off the studio to do that. Like, unless they are very, very in sync with what you're doing. And, like, basically, from the very Lucasfilm side of things, they were saying that they were not handing in enough setups, essentially. So when you go to shoot a scene, you have several setups to capture different angles and stuff like that. Lord and Miller apparently weren't doing all of the setups that they needed to get all the scenes. You just want as much coverage and as much footage as you want, so you can cut the movie how you want. So they were playing a lot, which I don't really see as a problem. I think if you can find a good cut with what you are putting in, that's great. But if they apparently just didn't have a strong enough idea of what the movie was, so they were just playing around a lot. I would like to see that, though. I think that would be more interesting.
Well, yeah, those guys have never made a bad movie, so I would have liked to see it, too.
No, exactly. They did 21 and 22 Jump Street, and the Lego Movie, and all this stuff.
Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs wasn't bad.
As I say, I never saw that one, but I've heard good things about it.
Yeah. Well, hey, I think that's all we have to say about Solo. I guess we spoiled it, even though we're uploading this on the preview night, so...
Right.
But evidently, Rich was spoiled, and he enjoyed it anyway. And in my opinion, these spoilers don't matter, because I don't give a fuck about Star Wars.
Like, really, if you know Darth Maul is in this movie, that's all you really need to know, really.
Yeah, and it probably won't blow your mind, because it certainly didn't blow mine.
Well, I think Darth Maul is a big fan favorite character, so you're kind of minority here, actually.
Not in the minority of Monkey fans, I have to hope. Most of them, judging by our Last Jedi review, are not big Star Wars fans either. Hey, speaking of future reviews, even though we weren't speaking of that at all, Erich, we agreed we're going to review Show Dogs when we're together in New York in about 2 weeks, but I am not convinced the film will still be in theaters then. What should we do to remedy the situation?
I guess see another movie and say you saw Show Dogs and attempt to bullshit it.
It's supposed to be your punishment, though, so I would feel like I got ripped off.
That's true.
I guess worst case scenario, we just wait for the Redbox release.
I guess. I mean, I'm interested to see whether there's any dollar theaters or 99-cent theaters around that area, because that is certainly where that movie is playing, correct?
In Brooklyn?
In Brooklyn, yeah.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, they probably have like a movie theater every square mile.
I mean, like, yeah, there are those second-run movie theaters that get the movies that were in theaters 2 months ago, so hopefully they'll have Show Dogs, but I don't know.
Okay, Rich, what movie's coming out next weekend that we're gonna go see? There's gotta be something. There's something every weekend this summer, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought, and then... So what, next week gonna be the 1st?
Yeah, I guess so. June 1st. I don't know if anything's coming out.
Let's see here. No, nothing until June 8th.
Oh, wow, okay. So we're free up until Show Dogs.
Seems like it.
Well, hey, for Izakino, and maybe we'll think of something to review next week, I have been Monkey Johnson.
And I am Erich Solo, or Soilo.
See you next time.
Into a more colloquial version that can be suited to their end goals. Essentially, it takes something men were already familiar with but didn't have a name for, and then gives it rhetoric. In particular, they like to construct a hierarchy around masculinity such that you should want to be one type of man and avoid alternatives. Here's an example of some according to the Red Pill Reddit's glossary. Alpha, leader, somebody who displays high value, or traits that are valued by women. Alpha can refer to a man who exhibits alpha behaviors, more alpha tendencies than beta, but usually used to describe individual behaviors themselves. Beta, traits of provision, either providing resources or validation to others, women and perhaps men. Beta traits display low value to women if they are put on too strong or too early in meeting, giving without equity. Beta can be used to describe individual behaviors as well as people who have an overwhelming amount of beta properties, opposed to alpha. So what I find so fascinating about this dichotomy is how they seem to think that giving a shit about women is a bad thing. They love these words, alpha and beta, even though to outsiders it seems like complete gibberish. It's also based on outdated pseudoscience, which I mean, I'll just link H-Bomber Guy's video on Pickup Artist for that, since he already went into enough detail on debunking the alpha/beta dichotomy that it'd feel redundant if I discussed it too much. The shortened version is that the study through which people pull the terms alpha and beta wasn't even an accurate assessment of wolves, let alone that a study on wolves can't necessarily apply to human beings. As such, the usage of these words in red pill sense is just made up. They make up traits to associate with alpha and beta, and really what they mean is hegemonic masculinity and subordinated masculinity. Hegemonic masculinity, after all, doesn't actually exist, but men try to act it out regardless. We're all familiar with how hegemonic masculinity plays out in our lives, regardless of whether or not we're familiar with the term. Hegemonic masculinity, of course, refers to the traits and behaviors and statuses that men are pushed to hold in society that represent the top of the masculinity hierarchy. These typically involve having tight control over emotions, being sexually dominant over women, physically and intellectually dominant over other men, and having things like money and prestige. In a more general sense, hegemonic masculinity is any form of masculinity that men use to subordinate women and other men. These things are portrayed in the red pill community as alpha traits, and that's a good way of sort of adapting an idea that already exists in academic circles into a more colloquial version that can be suited to their end goals. Essentially, it takes something men were already familiar with but didn't have a name for, and then gives it a name that encourages a sort of echo chamber effect, where they construct new terms rather than using the existing terms, such that if you join their community, you have to use their new terms and thus are discouraged from thinking outside of anything but the community in terms of discourse. Red pill, the recognition and awareness of the way that feminism, feminists, and their white knight enablers affect society. Seeing the world for what it is. Seeking truth no matter how painful or inconvenient the truth may be. Blue pill, from The Matrix and its sequels. The path of conformity with society's expectations. The state of being unaware of the problems engendered by society. Compare with red pill below. These definitions are vague, and I think that might be intentional, but it's worth noting that what they really mean is that red pill people are people who recognize a feminist conspiracy against men in the world, and blue pill people are people who haven't opened our eyes to their conspiracy garbage. This isn't exactly framed on masculine terms, but it still does create a hierarchy of masculinity, as a lot of red pillers will call someone a blue-pilled cuck beta mangina, or something of that sort, immediately associating being blue-pilled with being a weak man. White knight. 1. A man who comes to the rescue of a woman or of women, reflexively, emotionally driven, without thought or even looking at the situation. 2. A man in authority who enables team women in his legislative actions, judgments, or rulings reflexively, emotionally driven, without thought or even looking at what's right. Also known as mangina. Okay, first of all, team women? Is this double dare? Like, you do realize genders aren't teams, right? Like, feminism has been on board with working with men and for men for a long time now. There's really just Team Red Pill and everyone else ever. And we're largely disinterested in treating an entire gender as though it's part of some terrible game show. The phrase mangina is probably the ultimate takeaway from this whole white knight definition, because it's the perfect example of the implicit misogyny of toxic masculinity, that when men have to degrade other men, they do so by comparing men to women. It just shows how low these men think of women, as well as how inherently childish they are in their base assumption that to be feminine is somehow a bad thing. I've volunteered at a preschool before, and I didn't even see half of the immature gender dividing that red pillers engage with on the regular, and that's fucking sad. Now, back to the red pill constitution, my favorite of the bunch. 14. Low-tier men. Neither women nor society care about male weakness. As alluded to in section 6, low-tier men are invisible to women as a function of hypergamy. If you are weak, depressed, small, poor, uneducated, unconfident, or anything else that prevents you from being powerful, nobody will care about whether you live or die. This is another one of those examples where they target insecurities in their audience, because the author is basically putting forth the idea that if you aren't good enough, you simply don't matter. This is concerning because a lot of people who are likely to turn to the red pill community are people who likely suffer from depression and likely don't have a ton of money, and likely uneducated, especially given the conservative men's approach of trying to make higher education seem like a waste of time. I've met men who could potentially become red pillers, and they lack confidence and they have depression issues. And I've often tried to be there for those folks instead of being judgmental, but here, right out of the words of a red pill author, is someone saying you do not matter, which again is a Tyler Durden thing that misses the point that Tyler Durden was a character that was supposed to be condemned. By telling them they don't matter, they can reinforce the idea that this is women's fault and that they can remedy their self-confidence issues with joining the red pill community. But since the red pill community actively places itself into toxic masculinity, it's a no-win scenario for a lot of the men who join because they're faced with a situation in which perpetually the problem is women. They actively discourage self-improvement and introspection by trying to recreate the same bullshit that mainstream society feeds men, but repackaging it to sound groundbreaking and eye-opening. Once again, it's exactly like Fight Club. People only care about you when you're powerful or a woman. You have to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and become self-reliant because nobody else gives a fuck. You're given a dichotomy, sink or swim. You sink, and you end up drowning yourself in failure and self-pity. If you swim, and only if you swim, people will start taking notice. Society will always have a safety net for women, for weakness is a function of femininity rather than a bug. White knights will have to come to the rescue, the state will provide welfare, and other women are more than happy to side with her. All of this in spite of any success or remarkable accolades. A man of equal unworth is condemned, and rightfully so. Whilst women can cruise without social ostracization, men cannot. Fair it is not, but true it is all the same. I just love that opening line. People only care about you when you're powerful or a woman. I hate to break it to you, buddy, but there are a lot of women who nobody cares about and who are severely neglected by society as well. This argument that society always has a safety net for women is absurd. I mean, it's immediately demonstrably false, because the TANF in the US has a lifetime limit of 5 years, and they kick you off of it after 2 years straight. The TANF pressures women to find jobs, or more importantly, husbands to provide for them, and that is nothing like a safety net for women. Men also get paid better and have much lower rates of poverty than women, so this whole safety net garbage is not really based on anything. Also, just a side note, that last sentence sounds like the author is turning into Yoda. Now, one last article about hierarchies and masculinity. This one is called, What is a Beta Male? Let's read. How our beta males are created. We are born, we are helpless. You do not come into this world as an alpha male or a beta male. There are several ideas about why some of us are beta males. Evolution. Of course. The way a child is raised, the rise of the feminist movement, the lack of a father figure. Well, this is another one of those things where I just want to climb up a mountain and shout from the peak, citation needed! You can argue that beta males are raised or through life events or through evolution. We go into this in more detail in the Book of Alpha. Beta males usually lack an alpha mentor like a father figure or a good role model. The masculine father figure was replaced by a woman that raised her boy into a beta male. This caused boys growing into men to believe that a woman's definition of a man was right, and any other idea of a man was wrong. Others may argue that we are all descendants of beta male cavemen. When cavemen lived in a small society populated by very few people, any caveman that stood out or acted alpha became an outcast. These alpha males were looked down upon by everyone including the opposite sex, which resulted in alpha males not reproducing. As a result, only beta males reproduced.
For a generation of men raised by women. I'm wondering if another woman is really the answer we need.
So then what are the characteristics of a beta male? Let's look. Focused on doing what others want them to do. Too nice. Always searching for perfection. Avoids conflict and confrontation. Resentful. Require hand-holding. Passive-aggressive. Sensitive and emotional. Fake nice. Seeking approval from others. Hiding mistakes and flaws. Not seen as sexual. More comfortable around women than men. Repress their feelings. Feels guilty. Non-masculine. Does not put himself first. What I find interesting is that a lot of these are just called being a good person. A few of them are just called being a person, and some of them are just you aren't enough of an asshole. Like being sensitive and emotional is normal and that shouldn't be discouraged, and not putting yourself first is something that we should all be doing in the first place. The worst of the bunch is probably more comfortable around women than men, because it almost sort of implies that men shouldn't have good relationships with women. That men should be afraid to socialize with and become close to women if there isn't some sort of sexual pretense or end goal. The most ironic of these traits, though, is seeking approval from others, because that is quite literally what this entire community is trying to do. They're trying to achieve the status of being an alpha male so that they'll look good in front of others within their community. By definition, this makes alpha males also beta males, which means the terms, unsurprisingly, don't mean anything. You're not alone. If you've read the traits and characteristics of a beta male and find that you fit the mold, understand that being a beta male is a choice. You can be alpha, you will be alpha if you choose to be. The journey to being an alpha male is not easy, but anyone that has gone through it and made it to the other side know how beautiful life can really be. You can live the life you want. If you need help or guidance to reclaiming your masculinity and taking control of your life, please use To Be Alpha as a resource. We are here to help. We have helped many men change their life and completely change their outlook on life. We welcome the challenge to helping you. Be Alpha. It sort of blows my mind that this website treats being an alpha male, a concept that's nebulous to begin with, as a choice, when all of the other articles I've seen suggest that being an alpha male isn't much of a choice at all, that it's locked away to a small, lucky group of men. I guess the unattainable goal that is dangled over people as something that can potentially be attainable is sort of indicative of the treadmill of toxic masculinity that they're always running on. And, of course, like usual, it's exactly like Fight Club. But I would like to make a bigger point here, which is that this treadmill of toxic masculinity actually makes me wonder, are there any alpha males in the actual Red Pill community, in little support circles on Reddit or on these various websites? Are any of the people writing these articles identifying themselves as alpha? And what happens if someone becomes alpha? Do they just leave the community? If they can get laid by any woman, if they can assert all of the alpha qualities, then what purpose does being in the Red Pill community serve? It seems that the overarching goal is to take advantage of the system that they're in order to benefit from being alpha, but like, how many people then leave the community? So in that sense, the Red Pill community sort of shows its own failures because of their high numbers. By insisting that to be alpha is the best that one of them can be, then at the very least, a large percentage of them should be alpha if the goal is to ascend to that status. Instead, this is a group of men who apparently need to become alpha and also can't become alpha, and are stuck perpetually in a loop in which they turn to the Red Pill community for how to manage achieving this status, while simultaneously making no real progress. It's a snake eating its own tail, and if anything it shows that they must not really understand masculinity very well, if they haven't really shown much of an ability to cultivate masculinity the way they would like to think they have. If I'm allowed to go off script for just a moment, I do want to say that I've known a lot of men in my life, and I've spent a lot of time talking to men and listening to them, and especially providing emotional support and listening to men while they talk about their issues, and the issues mostly relating to relationship issues, including relationships with women, but also relationship with other men, also relationships with themselves. And what I've noticed is that whenever they start to wind down and really get to sort of the root of the issue, sometimes, and I don't want to like be insulting any of the people in my life, but sometimes masculinity presents a roadblock for understanding and really processing the issue, where, for example, when talking about women, I am non-binary, and I'm of the mind that men and women are not drastically different the way that people think men and women are different, and that the differences have more to do with social status and more to do with the differences between masculinity and femininity, but like, men tend to think that women are way more complicated than we are. Like, emotionally, yeah, it's harder to adapt to a feminine mindset, but it's not that different. Like, just listen to women and then it's fine. Like, there's very simple ways of understanding people despite differences, and that roadblock of masculinity sort of getting in the way of their ability to develop a strong relationship with themselves and with other men and with women is sort of indicative of the Red Pill community as a whole, because the Red Pill community sort of doesn't seek to remove that roadblock, but instead seems to want to exacerbate it under the pretense that it's somehow beneficial. As in, instead of the problem being that men have a hard time figuring out how to communicate with women, the problem is that women are evil, and so therefore men can take advantage of them without any sort of moral sort of drawbacks to it. Like they basically say that it's morally justified to take advantage of women, and that you should do that, and that makes you a better man. And really, it doesn't. It doesn't make you a better man. It doesn't make you stronger. It doesn't make you more in tune with yourself. And it doesn't even make you more masculine. Like it just turns you into sort of a whiny asshole. And so when I look at all this stuff, I get kind of concerned because I know a lot of men who I've seen that roadblock, and really the issue to me is that it's being presented as either something that's perpetuated intentionally by women or as something that's sort of inevitable. And all of the rhetoric of the red pill community sort of suggests that there's this really big issue where since men can understand men better, men will listen to men first and then be taught to not listen to women. And so the red pill community ends up being sort of an example of what like the issues of masculinity look like if not given any time to be chipped down in any way. It's just masculinity issues exaggerated to a degree that's almost cartoonish at times. Alright, so what have we learned from all of this? Well, if you ask me, the thread that connects all these things together is a sort of believe first, justify later mentality, in which they will often make things up or twist claims that already exist in order to create the illusion that they're coming from a place of honesty or validity when they really aren't. They seem to want their audiences to believe what they say before understanding it, so that way they're more likely to continue to believe it the more they begin to understand it. When you apply basic logic, basic questions, or even a small amount of research, you can debunk their ideology in less than 30 seconds. But given my background of actually studying the exact details of gender-based oppression in society, I can thoroughly debunk most of these claims, not just in abstract, but in the actual practice of what they're saying. Of course, it's worth noting that they don't care if their ideology is corrupt. If they did, they might fact-check anything they say. What matters is whether or not it sticks, and in that regard, they've been pretty successful as a community in building narratives and turning people into believers, and that's because beyond the claims themselves, there's more of a metagame going on. I'll discuss the effectiveness of their actions and statements in a later video in the series, but next, I'd like to take a small detour.
Hey everybody, how's it going? It's me, the guy named Chaseface, back again with another ramble video, where I take a very somewhat nuanced topic and don't write a script, and I just talk about it, and I make a lot of oversights, and I repeat myself multiple times, and I don't really add anything to the conversation, but you guys seem to like it anyway, so let's do it again, shall we? So recently I've been having a lot of observations on just sort of the meta community of YouTube and YouTubers and the commenters, and I have a lot of thoughts on the matter, a lot of philosophical thoughts, a lot of like psychological thoughts, and I've had a few negative run-ins with former fans of mine that have really made me stop and think about, did I do something wrong? Was I mean to this person? Did I present myself in a good light? Were they being unreasonable, etc., etc.? So I just figured maybe I'd make a video kind of talking about this subject from the position of a YouTuber, from the perspective of someone that does this like full-time. So the topic of this video is why YouTubers aren't your friends, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a little bit. So when I first